History. Throughout my entire academic life, I have been absolutely fascinated and compelled by history. It is the only thing that connects us all and provides an insight on how human activity has influenced and shaped our world. History has not only become the link we have with our past, but with the story surrounding the entire universe, and it is the roots on how the world functioned many years ago. But can we trust it? This attraction and passion for history recently led me to get more skeptical about its accuracy and validity. Personally, as a learner and individual, I have always been that guy to question absolutely everything, from the most basic and frankly useless things up to historic events that alter the future on a global scale. All of this led me to the question of what actually is history itself and to what extent is it reliable? So, what do you think? What do you think is history? Unfortunately, even though it would be a lot of fun, we don't have the time to ask everyone in the audience. So let's just look at how Oxford Dictionary defines history. So it defines history as the whole series of past events connected to a particular person or thing. I think we can agree that is somewhat accurate, especially since it conveys a similar definition to many other dictionaries, and also falls in line with what most people agree is history. However, this definition has two major flaws, those being its failure to mention how perspective inherently affects historical knowledge, and also this definition conveys the message that history is something objective, which I must strongly disagree with. With this, and the help of some friends, I decided to come up with my own definition for history. So, what we came up is, as a definition is, the building of knowledge regarding past events based on different perceptions and evidences. The reason for why this definition is more complete, at least in my vision, is because it emphasizes the fact that historical knowledge is not concrete and actually open to interpretation. You might be asking yourself right now, how come is history open to interpretation? Things happen, people write about it. That's it? But no. What many of us, including myself, fail to see at times is that every single piece of historical knowledge we possess is deeply influenced by personal inherited bias. However, what is this so-called personal inherited bias? Personal inherited bias is basically how past factors and experiences you have gone through in life automatically skew and affect your viewpoints on a particular topic. With this, let's take the example of how two different individuals with two different perspectives would address the Battle of Jutland. The Battle of Jutland was the largest naval military conflict that occurred in World War I. It involved over 250 ships and around 100,000 men, with the conflict being fought between Germany and Britain. So, who do you think won the Battle of Jutland? Was it Germany? Or was it Britain? Well, something very interesting and peculiar happened in the Battle of Jutland, contradicting the expectation of having a winner and a loser. Both sides actually claimed that they won the same battle, the same event. This occurred because Germany, in overall numbers, actually won the battle, since it destroyed more ships and had fewer casualties. However, this battle handicapped Germany's navy for the rest of the war, which was a major contributing factor to their eventual loss. This means that both of these sides had legitimate reason to call themselves victorious. This example is extremely clear, because even though we can get and analyze multiple sources, all of them will have a different description and a different message each of them will convey. This phenomena occurs because of the philosophical theory of perspectivism. In short, perspectivism argues that there is no absolute and no concrete truth. This concept was developed by the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Nietzsche questioned the truth at all times, and in his vision, truth is just a matter of perspective. Therefore, since perspective is constructed to our own individual emotion, to our own individual experiences, and to our own individual experiences, this means that all knowledge is unique for interpretation for each unique individual. Back to the Jutland example, in which the perceived outcome of the same event was deeply influenced by personal bias and perspective, we also must realize that in history, there is always room for interpretation. What I mean by that is that not only the historical knowledge and evidence that has been produced are affected by such factors, but so is the knower, the individual who is taking in this knowledge affected by this. This occurs because once an individual reads, sees, or listens to something as an individual, that person will automatically make their own assumptions, their own judgments, thus creating their own interpretation for a specific situation. This means that the knowledge that this individual just acquired will already be strongly impacted and influenced by their personal bias. This is the result of perspective, which shapes anything we see in our own unique manner. However, can we do something to solve this? I don't think so, because even though we can try and try and try, this bias is completely unconscious and unintentional. Therefore, it is a natural, inherited, and unavoidable bias. So, let's take this into action. Let's say that two individuals read a simple text stating that a car was going at 120 kilometers per hour. If an individual who is not used to the speed reads this text or sees this car going at this speed, they might assume that the car was going at a very high speed. However, if an individual who is a Formula 1 driver reads the exact same text, they might think the complete opposite. This is because, based on this individual's experiences in life and based on his perspective, 120 kilometers per hour is not a fast speed. Therefore, we can now realize that each unique individual perceives information in his or her own unique manner, since personal inherited bias will always impact one's views on anything and on everything. With such, we can say that accounts of history can never be fully reliable, because all the historical knowledge we own has been produced by people and shaped by personal bias. Also, as we discussed, the way we acquire knowledge is deeply influenced by the person who is acquiring this knowledge, since that person, as an individual, will interpret that information in his or her own unique manner. I'm not saying that everything we know from the past is fake or untrue. What I'm saying is that it's simply impossible to be objectively accurate. And that's not the point anyway. So, how do these considerations affect us? And where do we go from here? I think we can unanimously agree that 100% accuracy in historical knowledge is simply impossible to be achieved, since the only actual way of knowing what happened would be by hopping in a time machine and going back in time. That'd be fun, right? Well, but we can also agree that it's not possible. So, but is this the concept of 100% accuracy in everything and in history really that important? Isn't the fun of history to find the missing pieces of the puzzle? So, how do we deal with all of this? And should we deal with this? And is it an issue? Well, firstly, always before looking at the information which a historical source provides, look at who actually wrote that information, where was that information written, when was it written, and why was it written. By doing this, you certainly open your mind to the factors which influence that information to be written the way it did. This would certainly open your mind to the factors which shape this knowledge. This also means this is important, and we should always do it, so that we are aware of what influenced the information that we are consuming. However, back to the question that we began with. What is history itself, and to what extent is it reliable? Should we really be questioning if it is reliable? The aim of history is to work with different interpretations and not to establish concrete truths. So, is this really an issue? We have personal differences, and maybe instead of immediately refuting the ones we disagree with, we should acknowledge and accept what others have to say, so that we can have a better idea of what and who constructs and has constructed our society. Hence, we should always look to question, always look for more, always take information with a grain of salt, since by acknowledging what others have to say, we open our minds to different views and interpretations which form our history and our society. Thank you.